Here we go. 3. All right, joining me now on Croc Talk TV, I got my guy Cory Wheaton. All right, Cory has his own YouTube page called Cory Talk, so make sure you guys check that out. I have his YouTube link in the description. All right, Cory's gonna come on here because I think it's good sometimes to like have conversations with people that have a different opinion than you, right? Like I know I'm not always right with everything that I have to say, and I'm always willing to hear the other side of things and just have like a friendly discussion. So the way we kind of got started with this was I was in, I had said something in the comments and I saw your mentions and I originally responded. I don't know if you saw my response. I originally responded and I was like, nah, I need to get Cory
Yeah,
on
yeah, I
live.
saw
Right?
it.
So we're gonna go on YouTube and kind of talk about it. All right.
Yeah,
So essentially where it all started was, you basically said, and I think I had some pushback a little bit on Mac Jones and how he's not as mobile or athletic as some of the other guys that are being, successful in the NFL. And your comeback was, and I'll let you kind of get into that.
yeah. Well, first off, man, I appreciate you having me on the channel. Man, I love talking football, love talking college football, NFL football, and all things Mac Jones. Um, but I mean, seriously, um, I think that when we talk about dynamic quarterbacks and having the NFL shift to that, we really look at okay, the Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, which it took him a long time to develop into that. Patrick Mahomes, I feel like he's an outlier because he's the last quarterback that I can say mobile, really, besides Russell Wilson, that has actually won the big game. And that's kind of my pushback is the notion that you can't win big games with a pocket passer, where what we're trying to do now with these dynamic quarterbacks is to have someone like Lamar Jackson develop in the pocket, have Josh Allen develop in the pocket, and have who else we got out there, man? We got Deshaun Watson, who I think is a really good pocket passer, but that really separates him. He's the outlier here, him and Patrick Mahomes, because they really can do both. But the knock on Mac Jones is that we never seen him, scramble. We never seen him, drop back, have a quarterback keeper, run an RPO game like Tua did. And that's really my thing about, well, can you win with that? You can. You can. And with Kyle Shanahan, we look at it like, okay, the knock is a number 3 pick. Let's be real. No one thinks that Mac Jones is worth the number 3 pick. I'm not gonna sit on here and fluff the stuff and say, hey man, if I was a GM, would I pick would I trade all those assets to pick Matt Jones third overall? No, I wouldn't. But if I knew my intel was that Carolina, Atlanta, who Carolina coaches Matt Rule, they coach him at the Senior Bowl. And if we really look at it, the Senior Bowl, after the Senior Bowl, is really when the Mac Jones hype really took off. And I think that's what everyone's missing. So if you Kyle Shanahan, you like, look, I like this type of quarterback. I like that pocket passer, smart, can do some things in the pocket. If we want to put him out in bootleg, we can. Then you make this. Because, I mean, honestly, besides Philadelphia, are we sold that they're going to stick with Hurts? At least we know they're going to give him one year chance. So we didn't know if they're going to take a quarterback. So the only logical reason was after this whole Deshaun Watson, Miami, stuff kind of transpired. Everyone's thinking that Miami's going to take a quarterback. Well, when Miami came out, we're going to stick with Tua. The only logical reason for for San Francisco to move up was to go to 3. I mean, you had no other options. I mean, there were rumors, speculation that they would give the Jets a first round pick for Sam Darnold. Now, do we think Sam Darnold is Justin Fields or Trey Lance? We don't. So this kind of goes to show you what Kyle Shanahan is looking for. There's no quarterback on his roster that screams Justin Fields, Trey Lance. He got Josh Rosen as well, third string. He got Nick Mullins on the roster. He got Jimmy G. And the knock on Jimmy G, let's be real, health, decision making. Same knock, Jared Goff, health, and decision making. Mac Jones checks those boxes. He's healthy, he's young, he's cheap, but he's a good decision maker. I mean, we think that Sean McVay, I don't want to get too long here, but we think that Sean McVay traded Jared Goff for a more athletic quarterback. I don't think that Matt Stafford is a more athletic quarterback than Jared Goff. But what we do know
So,
is he's not
what would
throwing.
you say? What would you say the difference is between a Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff?
I think right now is the decision making. Matthew Stafford, I mean, he wasn't working with a lot in Detroit. I mean, beside the Calvin Johnson years, I mean, he's really was in a terrible franchise, but the guy has a live arm and he's not putting Detroit in bad plays. The thing about it was Jared Goff is not playing within the structure of the offense that Sean McVay has, drawn up. I mean, you got Cooper Cup, you got some guys, you got some dudes out there, man. There's no reason why you should be throwing it to the other team as often and as
See,
frequent as he was.
I got a little pushback on that because I actually think that Jared Goff, while yeah, he was not perfect, with the
Mm-hmm.
Rams, I thought he played well, right? I mean, we're talking about somebody that went to had three playoff runs, went to the Super Bowl another time, and even then, with all of that, like 1 year was one of the top passers in the league as far as yardage goes, right? So he has had success, to some extent with the Rams. And even with that, they were willing to move off of him with the success that he did have with them. I think it was something that said like no quarterback over the last 3 years or whatever, or 4 years has had more wins than Jared Goff. So with
Yeah,
all of that, they still move on from him. Why do you think that is?
I think that he's too expensive for what you're getting. All right, see,
What are you
and I'm
getting?
gonna
Just
yeah.
want to
So
get to
you
what are you
what
getting
you
from
get
him?
you're getting in big games. You're getting in big games that he can't overcome. He can't overcome his own mistakes, and that's the issue. Not the key word here. His own mistakes. It's not. Let's be real. The last Super Bowl that Jared Goff played in, I think it was a 13-3, 13-6 win
Yeah,
uh
Patriots.
from the Patriots. I mean, Jared Goff had every chance to win that game. He made terrible plays. Let's go back to the most recent Super Bowl, Jimmy Garoppolo. So Jimmy G, Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl. Let's be real here. 3 quarters, terrible. Man, let's say 3.5 quarter, terrible football. But Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, after Kyle Shanahan had him hand the ball off with what was 2 or 3 minutes left in the half or something like that. I mean, then he throws up a wild interception. I'm like, all right, man, this guy, he's clueless. And then the overthrow to Emmanuel Sanders, if he hits that, are we even having this conversation right now? We're not. So Sean McVay saw the same thing in Jared Goff. Hey, you cannot get out your own way. I mean, we're willing to roll the dice on a no name quarterback to go out and play against who they play against the
Seahawks.
Seahawks. The Seahawks. I mean, again, I mean, you can't get out your own way. And I think that you paid this man because of that. You pay him because he can play within your system, but you can't overcome. He can't overcome his mistakes. Now,
So this is kind of where I'm going with that with what you're saying, because the things that you're saying, you're on the right track with a lot of things. I think sometimes with guys like that have to win a specific way, there's not much room for error. Like when you are Jared
yeah,
Goff and the Patriots are throwing these different things at you, and if you get confused with anything, Jared Goff does not have the physical elite traits to overcome those type of things. There is
yeah,
no, you know what, I got to get back in the rhythm. Let me just make this throw that other people can't. There is no, you know
yeah,
what, maybe, let's design a run to get him in the rhythm, then start doing some things to get him in the rhythm. I say that to say, again, and let's bring it back to Mac Jones, right? Because that's how this conversation kind of started.
yeah,
Anybody that has really, and I'll tweet certain things because I feel like you said, I don't think there's any way that Mac Jones should be drafted at 3. That's my
yeah,
biggest issue with it.
yeah,
If the 49ers, and I read through some of your tweets and you said this, if the 49ers picked him at 12, there would not be this pushback.
yeah,
The biggest reason why there will be pushback if he's picked at 3 is not only because you traded all that to get him at 3, but because you're passing on guys with more physical traits. Now, what's the point of having the physical traits, right? It's really more so about what the guy with these traits can grow into. So when you look at Justin Fields, I started kind of going on a little rant a little
yeah,
bit before we came on. And my thing was, I look at Justin Fields and I'm like, look, they keep pointing out all these different things. They keep having these conversations about, well, Justin Fields can't do this, can't do that, can't do this. And then these videos come out and these breakdowns come out of him doing everything that they say he can't do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, like, what I don't understand is how can you see someone that has those elite traits, the big arm, the athleticism, which is a plus. Like those things are a plus. But he also executes an offense. We're talking about somebody who in his first year starting with Ohio State had what, one interception like all year. You know, and everybody talks about Trey Lance taking care of the ball. Like Fields took care of the ball too. Now he had a couple stinkers, and we're talking about a game. All right, and this comes back to like when you talking about a quarterback that can't get it out of his own way, right? Against Indiana, Justin Fields, probably his worst game as a collegiate athlete.
Definitely.
3 interceptions, right? 3 interceptions, but they still won. How were they able to overcome him turning the ball over 3 times? Well, he still had over 300 yards passing, almost 100 yards rushing, still had 3 touchdowns. So I say that to say, like, when you have a guy like that and things aren't going great, things aren't going perfect, and maybe he has to scale back on certain things or understand I can't do this or can't do that, there's still an alternative route for that guy to be able to win a game. And when I look at it and I hear you talk about the guys who have won Super Bowls in recent years, right? Most of them aren't mobile, right? Like you said, Mahomes might be, you know, Mahomes, you got Russell Wilson. My pushback on that is, well, the only other guy winning Super Bowls during that time is Tom Brady. You know what I'm saying? And then Nick Foles had the and even with the Nick Foles game, I think that was, if you're expecting that type of performance out of like your pocket, like that was an out of body experience for Nick Foles. Like that wasn't even Nick Foles. Like Nick Foles doesn't even play that good. Like that was like an amazing performance by him. So I say those things to say, like, especially with the way that guys are coming in, I think we have kind of like this, and what we're kind of hearing in the media, this old school view of what the quarterback is supposed to look like: stand in the pocket, deliver passes. And a lot of the guys that are coming out, they are naturally dual threat athletes. So it's not even so much that you have to go and, you know, go the extreme route of like a Lamar Jackson. Guys are coming in more so where they just are able to move. Now, my issue too is that it seems like they pointed out more with the black dudes that they are the guy that runs around. It's like, well, how come we don't talk about Trevor Lawrence that way? How come we don't talk about Zach Wilson that way? Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence make just as much plays with their legs as anybody else. Trevor Lawrence in the last 2 years has ran for over 1,000 yards. So how come they don't bring those things up about him? Like, why isn't he deemed as one of these, you know, athletic quarterbacks where they talk about him in that way, but they do with the black quarterbacks? That's a whole different conversation. But
it is.
I say all that to say, I like Mac Jones, and anybody that really kind of digs into a lot of things I be saying, I like him. I don't like him at pick 3 over these other 2 guys. I don't like him at pick 3 where you use 2 first-round picks and you have to use another one to use it. So we're talking about 3 first-round picks on a guy who more than likely will be more like Kirk Cousins. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can hope that you get some Tom Brady, Drew Brees, but we're talking about Hall of Famers. Most guys with that skill set end up being more like Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, who the Rams said this ain't enough, we got to get rid of him, and they're winning with him and went to the Super Bowl. Baker Mayfield, who is solid, right? Baker Mayfield's good, but if they could do that draft again, would the Browns take Baker Mayfield or would they take Josh Allen? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, hindsight 2020 is real life, but we have to look at it like people have to make these decisions in real time. I mean, we talk about projections, upside, but really, how many quarterbacks that come out every year actually hit that upside, hit that ceiling? I mean,
why do you think that? Why do you think that is? Why do you think that they don't hit their upside?
And I think that goes back to coaching. That goes back to development, scheme in college. Because let's look at it like this: a lot of these guys that's coming out right now, these what we call dual threat athletes, they come out this pistol RPO scheme. And the reason why I feel like I'm gonna shift gears to talk about Tua for a second, and I think the reason why Tua struggled a lot is because the system that Mike Locksley ran at Alabama was really quick RPO short game.
RPOs,
like let's get. I mean, Tua, you got a lightning release. You're very accurate, intermediate, short throws. Let's work with that. I mean, that's something that we don't got. No quarterback goes back to Jalen Hurts, he couldn't do it, and that's not Mac Jones' strength. Mac Jones is not an RPO. I'm not gonna defend Mac Jones and say Mac Jones is gonna give you 600 rushing yards a season. He's not. But can you win games with Mac Jones? Yes. If you Kyle Shanahan, do you feel like your offensive system is tailored? Because this is what we miss in this. Is Kyle Shanahan doesn't want to change his offense to fit the quarterback. He wants the quarterback to fit in his offense. That's what we got to understand. The RG3 pick, you go back to when Mike Shanahan was in Washington. And what people miss is that that's not really what Shanahan wanted at quarterback. In that same draft, they drafted Kirk Cousins in the 4th round. That same draft, when you moved up, you lost all that capital. You said, we're going to move up to get the Heisman winning quarterback. And right now, I can say RG3 was probably a more hype, more pronounced, dual athlete than Justin Fields or Trey Lance at that particular time in his draft. And they still would have got Kirk Cousins in the 4th round. And so, Kyle Shanahan went to San Francisco under the impression that I'm not going to be forced into a position where I got to take a quarterback that the ownership wanted, that the GM wants. I want to make this decision based solely off of what I feel like my offense can do. Jimmy Garoppolo got $100+ million off 6 games. Jimmy Garoppolo got $100 million off 6 games. That is, I don't know, that's small sample size for a lot of money for a guy who hasn't proved anything. 2 games in New England, got hurt. He came and had 6 games for them when he first got there, and that was it. They gave him $100 million. So
there was some context with that though, just because of the situation. He was in the contract year. They probably could have franchise tagged him, but really, essentially, the way they set up the contract, they set up the contract to where they really had an out after 2 years. So essentially, even though he would have got paid some good money, it was almost like the only thing he was kind of guaranteed was basically 2 franchise tags in a row. So it wasn't the way they structured it. It looks like a huge amount of money, but it wasn't when you kind of look at the details. Essentially was okay, we're basically going to franchise him 2 years in a row just to see what he is. And from that point, they would be able to get out from underneath that contract at any point with no dead cap. Real quick, I just want to tell everybody, thank you guys for all being in here. Make sure you guys subscribe Croc Talk TV on YouTube. I see a lot of people tuned in here from Periscope. I don't get those views, all right? So make sure you guys go subscribe to the YouTube. Watch it on YouTube, all right? Go watch my guy Cory Talks. He got his YouTube is in the description. You guys go, make sure you guys subscribe to that as well. But okay, so back to what you were talking about, right, with the quarterback. Now, this is a different conversation. Do you think that the way Kyle Shanahan views quarterbacks can hurt him a little bit in how he kind of sees it? And I'll kind of go to some topics that seem like he was getting away from that. But if you choose Mac Jones, clearly he's not. So Kyle Shanahan, he has come out and said, like, the game is kind of changing. It's nice to have somebody that's mobile. He talked about on their first press conference after the trade, he came out and was like, look, somebody had asked him, like, what type of quarterback are you looking for? And he was like, and he kind of sounded irritated by the question. He was like, man, everybody always asks me about Kirk Cousins and that, and they pigeonhole me into that Kirk Cousins type of quarterback. He said, that is not my ideal quarterback. And he tried to, really cover his tracks. I'm like, look, I love Kirk Cousins. Like, he's done a great job. People would be lucky to have him. But if I was to draw up my perfect quarterback, it would not be Kirk Cousins. My perfect quarterback is the biggest, strongest, fastest, and best in the pocket. So he has kind of talked about maybe he has changed a little bit, at least from 2017, where he was stone cold stuck on getting a guy like Kirk Cousins and didn't even evaluate Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. Do you think he has maybe learned from his lessons and firsthand kind of seeing how that has affected him with Patrick Mahomes beating him in the Super Bowl? Deshaun Watson, who was, looks like a top 7 quarterback in the league, and Watson was one of the guys the 49ers were interested in trading for before the whole scandal thing popped off.
Yeah.
So do you think that there is some potential there that Kyle Shanahan has changed the way he thinks? Or do you think, he's going to forget all about that and he's just going to draft Mac Jones?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Mac Jones is definitively the number 3 pick. I don't. I mean, You're right. I saw that interview. He said if you draw it up, he'd be biggest, strongest, the fastest man. But that's literally perfect. That's Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
That's Trevor Lawrence, and you're not gonna get that.
I mean, that's a different
So
conversation, but yeah, I
yeah.
agree.
So that's so again, that's Trevor Lawrence, that's Andrew Luck, that's Cam Newton. When you talking about guys like that, man. But what I like about Kyle Shanahan though and his offense is that guys like that, man, they feel like they are the answer. The quarterback, the running back, the wide receivers aren't the answer though. Everybody that is in the structure of the 49er offense fits. Do I think George Kittle would thrive in Detroit? No. But I think he thrives because of the way that Kyle Shanahan utilizes him. And that's a big part of this is people who feel like their system can outwork and outmatch and out scheme, the quarterback play, then those guys are the guys who say it doesn't matter who I got at quarterback, as long as I can get somebody who's competent enough to make the right throw, make the right read, know where to go, think like I think. And that's what Kyle Shanahan wants. And people may call it arrogant. People may think that it's, well, how can you pass up a generational talent like a Justin Fields? It'll be hard. If I'm sitting in the draft room, it'll be hard if I'm looking at, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, they're off the board, and I'm sitting there at 3, and I got Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. I gotta hope that Trey Lance playing at North Dakota State only throwing 18 passes per game. That's not a lot, man. That's game manager. People want to talk about Mac Jones. That's perfect. That's AJ McCarron. That's Greg McElroy. That's Jake Fromm. that's I mean, honestly, yeah, he's dynamic,
But it's them. Yeah, but they were doing that where it's like, okay, they're not throwing that much, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about Trey Lance, who has a different skill set. So although he's only throwing for the same amount of yards as them, he's also giving you 1,200 yards on the ground.
Yeah,
and he has that ability with the bigger arm and the athleticism and all that.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit more to that, with how he was kind of asked to win at North Dakota State.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing though. I'm glad you said that. We got to look at how they asked Matt Jones to win at Alabama. I mean, this is my biggest thing why I like Matt Jones more than I like Tua, more than I like Jalen Hurts, is because when you had Matt Jones didn't have Jalen Waddle for the whole year. I mean, I think people look at it like they see that picture and they say Matt Jones was throwing to this. He wasn't. Matt Jones was throwing to Devontae Smith, Slade the Blade Bolden. I mean, do we look at Slade Bolden as a first rounder, second rounder, third rounder? No. John Mechie may develop into a first rounder, and that's a huge may. Miller Forrestall. So his production outweighed his predecessors. Tua had legit 4 first rounders that he was throwing to. Jalen Hurts at one point in time at Alabama had, let me make sure I got it right, Calvin Ridley, Robert Foster, Cam Sams, who's on the Washington football team, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith, Irv Smith Jr. That's 6 players right there that has NFL that's in the NFL or headed to the NFL. In that season, Jalen Hurts threw 16 touchdowns. 16 touchdowns. Now, the backup that year was Tua Tagovailoa, who had 14 in mop-up duty. So the starter, with all of that talent, I mean, and I feel like people really miss out on that. You just can't plug any quarterback into Alabama offense and expect that they're going to have this success. What Mac Jones did was special. It was unique. It was Joe Burrow-esque. But again,
what do you think the difference is between Burrow and like Mac Jones? Why do you think there's so much pushback on Mac Jones, but not as much? I have my idea or reason why I think, but Joe Burrow was number 1 quarterback. Nobody said anything about it. Mac Jones is like, wow, like, but when you look at their production, they both are extremely productive in very similar situations.
Because Joe Burrow did it first. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, I use the NBA analogy for this. Is we're looking at Giannis have more production, more defensive numbers, but we don't want to give him the MVP. Why? Because we just saw it. We just saw him do that last year. With Joe Burrow, it was so much hype around him because he came out of nowhere. I mean, people forget in 2019 with the same talent, Joe Burrow completed 16 touchdowns the whole season. Not one touchdown went against Alabama. But the next year, I mean, with a new offensive coordinator, a new scheme philosophy, we look at Joe Burrow like, oh, wow, man, this guy's the best thing since sliced bread. Okay, well, Mac Jones had the same sort of trajectory, But we're looking at it like, well, he couldn't beat out Tua. Man, look, man, no quarterback that came at Alabama from 2018 was going to beat out Tua because of what Alabama wanted to do on offense. Now, Joe Burrow, I see that somebody said, Joe Burrow can make plays off script. He had to. I'll give you that. He had to. But
And I think
there
that's the
weren't a
biggest
lot of
difference.
negative.
Like, to be honest, like from a passing
Yeah,
standpoint,
yeah,
I think they both do some things extremely well. I don't think either one of them have like, these big rocket arms. And I don't even think that Joe Burrow is like super athletic, but I think their decision making, their ability to be really good high end ball distributors, I think they do a really good job of those things
yeah,
to where I would feel comfortable with both of them being able to execute an offense and have no worries. The biggest difference to me is that you have one that is much more capable of being a legit threat and playmaker with his feet. They did quarterback draws and stuff with Joe Burrow. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying he's Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence or, any of those guys, but he's definitely more than athletic enough. And I will, and it kind of gets overlooked a little bit. I'd say Mac Jones probably moves a little bit better than people give him credit for. There are times where he has taken off for first downs and made some, runs. It's not pretty. It looks like it hurts, but he has done it. It's just not to the extent of. It's just not to the extent of Joe Burrow. And I think, ultimately, I think that's what the biggest pushback is. Because even if Justin Fields was there and I was hearing that the 49ers are going to take Joe Burrow, you wouldn't even get as much. I still would think it's weird, but you wouldn't get as much pushback from me. I think Mac Jones is just that's the biggest difference to me.
Yeah, it's the biggest difference. I mean, Joe Burrow, even at LSU, he showed that he can make some plays off script. He can, do things that all else fails. I got pressure in my face. I can get out the way though. Didn't work out too much for him in Cincinnati, but again, we haven't seen Mac Jones do it. But just because you haven't seen someone do it doesn't mean that they're incapable of doing it. I mean, he did run a fast 40. I know that straight line speed is not the end all be all, but it shows that he can move. It shows that, hey, if we need to get you out in space, can you buy us a little time though? Do you have an efficient enough arm if we need to reset the quarterback platform to distribute the ball? Can you do it? He can. Now, people look at it, I'm like, look, man, you don't do what he did or what Joe Burrow did that efficiently without having the brains, knowing where I want to go within my offense. Hey, you know what? There's a lot of guys. I can make a play. If I'm Mac Jones, I can make a play, or I can just dump it off to Najee Harris. Me running, I may get 4 or 5 yards. Dumping it off to Najee Harris, he may get 12 to 15. That's still a productive play.
Yeah.
See, what we're thinking about is the quarterback has to take off. He has to look at progression 2, then take off. No, there's a lot of options. I've never seen an offense drawn up that says, if the first read not there, take off. Yes, if you're dealing with Cam Newton, if you're dealing with RG3, if you're dealing with guys like that. But most offensive coordinators have options within the offense. And most of the time your running back is an option. See, now the running backs on the Baltimore Ravens aren't going to get the same production in the passing game like they would at another place, because the quarterback is James White. James White is a perfect example. Leonard Fournette had a rejuvenated career. Why? Because Tom Brady was smart enough to, hey, you know what? I could probably scramble and get you 7 yards, but if I dump it out to Leonard Fournette, I can dump it out to him. He can make a play, get into my playmaker. He get 15, 20 yards, maybe even a touchdown. We saw that firsthand. And so we have to get out the mindset that a quarterback, when you design a quarterback, that within the structure of the play of the offense, the quarterback has to make a play outside the pocket. No, the only thing that I need my quarterback to do is get the ball to my playmakers. Those are now that's if you want to run an offense like that. I get it, but not every quarterback that's coming out is gonna be that, man. They're not gonna be these guys that can move. Josh Allen, even if he wasn't as mobile, is 6'5", 6'6", 240 some pounds, and he can throw it from sideline. He can throw it from end zone to end zone. That's not something that you want to pass up, man. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, and he can play
teams
cold
did
weather.
still though. Again, teams still passed on it, and I think that's part of it, right? Like teams, and you heard Mel Kiper say it, like teams, you have to be able to scout with anticipation. Like they always talk about what this guy is right now. And none of these guys, whatever they are right now, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. And they're going to get to the NFL and they're either going to get better or they're going to get worse. Nobody's going to stay the same. You have to kind of be able to project what this guy can be. So even with a guy like Trey Lance, who doesn't have a whole lot of passing attempts throughout his time, you still have to kind of look and see, well, can he throw the ball a lot? If I have to have him throw the ball 30 times, can he? What I want to do, because there's been a lot of comments where I see people kind of like responding to some of the things you're saying. Do you mind if, and now, before I do this, you might have some angry 49er fans, all right? So if they get too wild, I'll just kick them off, all right? Yeah. But I see like TNEQ, he on here, and I know he's had a lot to say. There's some other people. I want to get them in here to be able to, give them a chance to kind of maybe ask questions to you and talk about that. And are you good with that?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Yeah. We won't be too long. You've already been gracious with your time. So here we go, y'all. I'm putting the link in the chat. So you guys should be able to click the link, and I'll see you guys in here. We'll be able to, invite you guys. All right. So there's that. I think that's how it works. I think you guys should be able to click the link. You guys should be able to come on in. And if so, or copy paste it, whatever you got to do, I'll get you guys in here and we'll bring you guys on live, kind of talk about this. But we'll see if some people are able to kind of pop up in here. Yeah. But now, man, I'm with you. And the great thing, I understand it. I get it. I even understand why Kyle Shanahan would pick Mac Jones or want that type of quarterback in the scheme. I get it. My thing is you can't be that stubborn to not want to put somebody in the offense that actually can run things that you want to do and take it to higher heights. And we've seen a guy like Andy Reid, and where Andy Reid was like, you know what? I'm doing extremely well with Alex Smith, and we're winning, and we're going to the playoffs, and we're going on these runs. But I need something that could take me over the top. And he, after playing in divisional rounds, after playing in multiple playoffs with Alex Smith, he said, I'm going to trade up 17 spots to go get a guy who I don't even know if he's going to 100% fit my offense, but I'm going to do some things with him that makes me even more dangerous. He's going to make me look good. And I think everybody talks about like that. And, Andy Reid's coming from, he's a West Coast offense tree guy.
Yeah.
And he still has some of the West Coast offense principles, but they take more downfield shots than anybody. And I think some of it, like the coach has to kind of get out of his own way.
Yeah, but when you think about Patrick Mahomes in the down shot, is it because of his arm? I mean, you got Tyreek Hill, you got Mecole Hardman, you got a lot of these speed guys out there. And Tyreek Hill was still productive with Alex Smith. But I'm with you, we've seen Alex Smith and what he can do in the Kansas City offense. We've seen him put up 40 plus on the New England Patriots. So we know that you can thrive in that system. But I think what the dynamic of what Patrick Mahomes did would give them new life, give them new energy. But you can't look at every quarterback that comes out and think that they're gonna be Patrick Mahomes. We didn't even think Patrick Mahomes would be Patrick Mahomes. There wasn't any hype.
I wish I knew how to post though, because I would post on here a tweet that I put.
Yeah, because
is my screen sharing? Hold on. I'm not going to do it. But I actually tweeted out one time during that draft, and I was like, look, these quarterbacks, they all come from different schemes and whatnot. Mm-hmm. When you're looking at these guys, you just have to be able to see who has the most upside? And I was like, when I'm looking at these quarterbacks coming out, and it was that year, 2017, I said, Patrick Mahomes has the most upside. That's who I would draft. And it really was just based on what he can become, because we can always look at what somebody is, and then they get to the league, and then it's like, oh, well, who saw this coming? Who knew he was going to be this good? And it's like, well, if you look, you at least see he has the ability to do it. Real quick, you guys, I see a lot of people in here tuned in from Periscope. Make sure you guys head over to YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Get me those YouTube views. I don't get the views from Periscope. All right, so go to YouTube. Make sure you guys subscribe, Croc Talk TV. All right, but you have to look at these guys what can he be? So again, everybody's nitpicking at Justin Fields. And they're nitpicking at Justin Fields as if what Justin Fields is today is what he's going to be in 2 years.
Yeah.
And now, from that standpoint, you got to kind of look, what type of work ethic does he have? Is he able to retain information? Is he smart? It sounds like all those things check the box, but you never know, really truly know till you get them in the building.
Yeah.
But what type of work ethic? What type of all that? And if all those things check the box, and you see that he has the biggest arm in this class, you see he's on paper the most accurate quarterback in this class. You see that he is the most, athletic. You throw from sideline to sideline. He do all these different things. Why would you not bet on him being able to give you that highest upside? And I think sometimes when you pass on guys like that, where it's clear what type of baller this dude is, you miss, and then you're like, well, yeah, well, no, and then everybody just ends up, well, everybody can't be Fields, but it's like, well, you had a chance to get Fields. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But see, that's what we got to kind of go back to scouting and how these people are actually, because what we think is we've seen the shift in quarterbacks after the Senior Bowl, after the national championship game, that the essentially they kind of, the top five really kind of start to really separate themselves from everybody else. Now, honestly, I don't know where Zach Wilson came from. I mean, I think people, San Francisco 49er fan, has to be more upset that, Justin Fields fans have to be more upset that, you let small time BYU quarterback, and for all accounts, I think that Justin Fields had a more productive season last year, definitely for the past 2 years, than Zach Wilson. We can agree on that. So what separated Zach Wilson from Justin Fields? Zach was Justin Fields is a better athlete. I think he has equal enough arm. I think he played in a bigger time program. Well, he did play in a bigger time program. He played in different big games.
He went
head to head with our presumptive number one pick.
I asked those same questions though about Trevor Lawrence. So let me, I heard you kind of breaking down the difference between Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence. Zach Wilson and Fields. What do you think the biggest difference between Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields are? What do you think separates Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, and why Trevor Lawrence is viewed as kind of untouchable prospect and Justin Fields isn't?
Well, let's be real. Let's man. Let's put context into this. When you see Trevor Lawrence, and this is gonna sound off script, man, but you see movie star, you see brand, you see face of franchise. I would put it like this: Alabama is the premier college football program in the world. That's just how it is. You beat them the way that he beat them in the national championship game. So I think what we forget. Everyone's talking about Justin Fields. To me, Kelly Bryant had a productive season at Clemson. And these guys Kelly Bryant did some of the same thing that Justin Fields can do, but it was Trevor Lawrence's ability to really elevate Clemson, to really force them to be something else, to utilize those weapons that I think really separate Trevor Lawrence from Kelly Bryant. Now that's Trevor Lawrence been the face of college football for the past 3 years. No matter who was picking at one, they're going to draft Trevor Lawrence.
I hear that part, but from an ability standpoint, what you see on film, what's the biggest difference between the two?
There's nothing that separates them.
Okay.
There's nothing that separates Justin Fields from Trevor Lawrence. Absolutely nothing. There's nothing that Trevor can do Justin can't do. Nothing.
That's all. That's all.
I can throw a deep ball, a 50-50 ball to Amari Rodgers and T. Higgins. I can do that. So there's nothing that. So I feel like I'm a Justin Fields. I'm gonna be a Justin Fields apologist right now. I feel bad that he's getting picked on as much as he's getting picked on. I do think that a lot of it has to do with people in their notion of Ohio State quarterbacks. Everyone looks at the Clemson game, but I feel like Ohio State put everything that they had into that Clemson rematch game. They threw the kitchen sink at it. That's not something that they could sustain, because obviously he didn't do it a couple weeks later against Alabama. We saw it. He got regulated back to what we think he is. Now, do I think that Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence have more upside? Hell, even Kellen Mond may have more upside than Mac Jones. But this is a win now league. This is what we're talking about.
So if you were picking
season, Kyle Shanahan.
if you're picking at, let's say you're at 2, you're the Jets, and you have on the board Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. Who are you picking?
Justin Fields.
All right, say your 49ers
Justin
at
Fields.
3.
If I'm
Who are you picking?
if I'm if I'm if I'm at 2, I'm picking Justin Fields. If I'm San Francisco and I've moved up, I gotta convince my fan base that the pick that I'm picking can have us win right now. We'll see the dividends paying right now, and I have to pick Matt Jones. Zach
Okay.
Wilson, to me, I'm like, Zach Wilson will have to fall because what we're talking about low level competition. In the one game where he played against Coastal Carolina, did he look good? Absolutely. Now he actually looked. I feel like he got lost in the Heisman conversation after that game. So Zach Wilson to me would be my number 5 quarterback. I would go Trevor Lawrence. I would go Justin Fields. I would go Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson. I mean, you look at any scouting report, he has the most bust potential, and it's for a reason. I mean, yeah, he got that wow factor, but wow factor isn't everything. I mean, you put Patrick Mahomes that same draft, everyone say Chicago passed up on him. Now, do we believe that Patrick Mahomes will be Patrick Mahomes today if he was drafted by Chicago Bears? That same
That's
Chicago
tough.
Bear
I think
roster that Mr.
he went to
Yeah,
Fox, and
yeah,
Fox wasn't any good. Like they fired him, and I
yeah,
think it was like John Fox didn't even want Trubisky or a quarterback. I don't think they told me anything
yeah,
about that. And then obviously he got the new staff in. Now I will say this about that situation, and you never know how it's gonna play. You're a Green Bay Packer fan, like you've seen the Aaron Rodgers. Back in 2005, I think it was 49ers were choosing between Aaron Rodgers, Alex Smith. They chose Alex Smith.
yeah,
And we went on to
mm-hmm,
see 49ers have 7 different coaches and coordinators in 7 years with Alex Smith,
yeah,
dealt with a bunch of injuries while Aaron Rodgers had more stability. And, the situations, it's like if we would have thrown Aaron Rodgers in that 49ers situation, would he have been as successful? And, so I get that part. But I do feel like we look at the Chicago Bears situation, and I do think Nagy, he comes from Andy Reid coach tree, he's supposed to be a good offensive minded coach. They have a plethora of weapons. They, so they've had a great defense. So I do feel like that's
mm-hmm,
one of the rare scenarios where I feel like a top 5 player kind of failed because of him. Like they actually,
yeah,
it's not like it's the Jets and what they've been with Sam Darnold or some of these other places you see that they'll draft a quarterback high and not give them anything to work with, and they have a terrible situation. Trubisky actually had a great situation, and he just fumbled the bag.
yeah,
So I will say I do think Patrick Mahomes. Again, I don't know. We would have to see if Nagy would be able to have as good of a plan for Mahomes as Andy Reid has, but
yeah.
that actually would be a nice little question.
Yeah, because I mean, we want to look at what a prospect is right now, but I mean, depending on the situation, I mean, Sam Darnold. I mean, people thought that he was going to be a number 1 pick over Heisman winner Baker Mayfield. They thought that Sam Darnold was a better quarterback after what we've seen Baker Mayfield do at OU. And he goes to New York and he's out there seeing ghosts. I mean, he's out there seeing ghosts, man. And he's never viewed the same again. Now we're looking at Sam Darnold, former number 3 pick. He has to go to Carolina to try to rehabilitate him into. Let's see what he can do with Joe Brady. Joe Brady turned Joe Burrow in from a. We'll talk about day 3 pick. Joe Burrow was a day 3 pick. For all accounts, if he would have came out 2019, day 3 pick, undrafted free agent. But Joe
So I have a
Brady
question
turned
for
him
you.
in from that. Yeah,
So if the 49ers take Mac Jones at 3 and the Panthers stay at 8 or trade up and they draft Justin Fields, who has the better season year 1? Justin Fields with Joe Brady and the weapons that they got there with, DJ Moore
I,
and all those guys, or Mac Jones with the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan?
I mean, based off that, I would still say that Mac Jones will have the better season because they're gonna give Sam Darnold a chance. They're gonna give Sam Darnold at least half the season. At least half the season. There's not a lot invested into him. You can take a quarterback, but I do believe that Joe Brady is coaching for a head coach position next season. So if he can really transform Sam Darnold into, let's just say, a serviceable, playoff contention type quarterback, he'll be a head coach next season. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But and if Sam Darnold has any sort of success, I do think they probably give him like a 2-year deal. I don't see Carolina drafting a quarterback now. I think that for the intel that they got, and this is what we have to understand about this, the intel side of it. What are the scouts saying? What are the GMs saying behind Twitter, behind the Twitter feed, the Adam Schefters, the Phil Yates? What are these guys talking about? And we don't know. Maybe people had Mac Jones. Hell, who knew that Mitch Trubisky was that high on anybody's board? Who knew that
I do
Daniel
think
Jones
once the
was that
draft
high
rolled
on
around,
anybody's board?
I think probably a couple months before the draft, he was a name that definitely started to hear more and more about. So we are aware that those type of things happen. I will say the difference even between Trubisky and, let's say, a Mac Jones is still Trubisky had higher end traits, and I think guys are just typically a little bit more willing to kind of gamble and bet on that. I've had you on for 45 minutes already, so I just kind of want to end. Do you have any closing statements or anything to kind of ease this situation for the 49er faithful if, in fact, the 49ers choose Mac Jones at 3?
I mean, you're gonna get a winner, man. You're gonna get a guy who fits what your quarterback coach, your offense coordinator, your head coach, what they want to do. I mean, you guys were one bad throw from a Super Bowl. Jimmy G hits Emmanuel Sanders. You guys are really kind of just hoping that he can stay healthy. I mean, so by all accounts, Mac Jones is a better athlete, is a better quarterback, is a better quarterback prospect, and he's cheaper than Jimmy Garoppolo. You went to a Super Bowl 2 years ago with that same quarterback. Now, I'm telling you like this. I can put a guarantee on this. If Mac Jones is the pick at 3, within 3 years, 2 to 3 years though, he's gonna win a Super Bowl with San Francisco. And they will be one of the top. They're gonna be one of the top teams in the NFC West. And that's one thing we didn't get a chance to talk about. I'm like, the NFC West has not been dominated by Russell Wilson. It has not been dominated by Kyler Murray. It's been dominated by Jimmy Garoppolo and Jared Goff. Out of that tough division, we're talking about with Nick Bosa. We're talking about with Aaron Donald, the best quarterbacks in that division, Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo. So I mean, it ain't all too bad.
All right, man. Hey, listen.
I appreciate you having me on, bro.
I appreciate you coming on. We're going to have to do this again. I'm going to message you, man. We got to do this again. I'm going to follow you on Twitter. Make sure you guys subscribe to his YouTube channel. All right, Cory Talks on YouTube. The link is in the description. Make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's some people in here that are on Periscope. Make sure you guys head over to YouTube, subscribe, Croc Talk TV. We'll see you guys next time, man. I appreciate you.